All right, we're back. We're talking about some of these best-selling books that are also on television specials across the country, on NBC and ABC and National Geographic. And here's one that Craig Evans participated as one of the expert scholars. It's called The Jesus Papers. And it's put out by Michael Bagent, the same fellow that wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And that theme was taken over into the Da Vinci Code. And so his deal here is that Jesus didn't die on the cross. He was drugged, and then he was a traveler. And Craig, tell me about this one.
Well, I find Bagent's latest book, The Jesus Papers, absolutely breathtaking in naivete and gullibility, and I don't know how else to put it. We are asked to believe that on the basis of Bagent's seeing two letters written in Aramaic, a language that Bagent cannot read, two letters which were shown to him by a murky, mysterious figure who collects antiquities and supposedly found these two letters, papyrus letters, buried beneath a house in Jerusalem. We are asked to believe that these letters actually were written by Jesus some years after he supposedly died. And so Bagent wants us to believe that this is proof that Jesus did not die on the cross, but in fact had perpetrated a fraud with the help of Pontius Pilate. So this gets even better.
Right.
And now has deceived his disciples, and they think he's alive, and so goes the rumor. Maybe Jesus died and was resurrected and so forth, and you have Christianity growing out of what is, in essence, a fraud. Well, I can't think of anything more ridiculous. Who else has seen these letters? How can two pieces of papyrus survive buried beneath a house in Jerusalem? A lot of people don't understand that. They think, well, the Holy Land, don't we find old documents there all the time? No. You find documents in the arid, very dry, warm climate of the Dead Sea, or you find documents buried in the dry sands of Egypt. You do not find 2,000-year-old documents buried under homes in Jerusalem, which gets rainfall every year. This story is unbelievable. On what basis should anyone take Michael Bagent's claims seriously? Earlier we talked about the Gospel of Judas. That's a real document. It really does exist. It did circulate in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Irenaeus talks about it. It's a real document that doesn't tell us any real history, but it's a real document.
Right.
These papers that Michael Bagent is talking about, they're not even real.
Yep, and we're going to talk about it more because he hooks that up to some of the theories spun by the Da Vinci Code and saying that when Jesus didn't die on the cross, he actually kind of escaped, went down to Egypt with Pilate's help, and of course that kind of formed the basis of what the Gnostics were actually writing 2nd century. His teachings kind of filtered down there, and then of course he escaped up to France, and that's the royal line that's up there. Well, it all falls in if there's no proof, and he's got no proof. He's got no evidence on that. And he's asking you to believe a pig in a poke here in the sense that he says, I've seen it, but I can't read the language, but trust me, here's what it says.
Sure, and he's got supporting documents also that he hasn't seen, which rumor has it were bought off by the Vatican. This is bogus scholarship. This isn't scholarship at all. This is just sensationalism, and I have to view it with the gravest misgivings.
All right. This is one of your buddies, Bart Ehrman, misquoting Jesus. You went to school with him. Was it Princeton?
We overlapped at Princeton one year. I was a visiting fellow, and he had just finished his PhD there at Princeton.
All right. He takes another tack. He's got a lot of stuff on the Gnostic Gospels and diversity of Christian groups in the 2nd century and so on, but this is more of his own personal story. He went to Moody Bible Institute, went to Wheaton College, then he went to Princeton, studied under Bruce Metzger. He was an evangelical Christian, and along the way, he started to doubt his own ideas about the Bible, and he says, one of those is the fact is, if you believe in inerrancy, you got to have a perfect script, and you have to have a perfect script, and we don't have it. We've got 25,000 plus manuscripts that have different little twists in them, and he says, that's a problem. We can't get back to what the original script was.
I'm very troubled, and frankly, I'm baffled by Bart's view there. I don't understand what the problem is. Everybody who goes to seminary he would have learned this at Moody Bible Institute, and he certainly would have learned it at Wheaton long before going to Princeton and studying with Bruce Metzger. Of course there are manuscript errors. There weren't printing presses in antiquity. These manuscripts, biblical manuscripts, were handwritten. There are always mistakes that are made, and sometimes they are intentional. But as you said, we have thousands of manuscripts. We compare them. The Greek New Testament that we have extracted from these manuscripts, we are confident we have 99+% of the original form of the text. So this whole problem about scribal errors or textual corruptions as a cause of the collapse of his faith, I don't see it. I find it completely unnecessary. The Bible is very well preserved. There's no question that we have Jesus' message. There's no question that we have Paul's letters, 99.9%. And there is no doctrine of any significance impacted by these scribal errors. And I have a real problem with misquoting Jesus for that reason.
Yeah, I just give you a little illustration. I remember studying the classics, and you had Catullus, the poet, and the fact is that there's only 2 manuscripts that have survived, and there are 1,000 years in between where we've got nothing, okay? There's no classical scholar I know that says what we have in Catullus isn't what he actually wrote, okay? But let's say that for the people that are listening, I want you to recognize, if we gave a class of 40 kids who got A students, B students, C students, and my friends in that class, okay, and you gave them the Gettysburg Address and said, copy this, and it was perfect, and they copied it, and then you took the perfect ones, you just threw them away, and you said, okay, we're going to try to get back to that perfect one with these 40 kids. Now, if you had 2 kids, and they were D students, you might have a real challenge. But if you got 40, they don't all make mistakes in the same spot. And so when you compare the documents, you can say, well, you know, if 38 kids had the word in there and 2 don't, we'll keep it in there. And this is how textual criticism comes down. You want more manuscripts. If you got 25,000 versus 2 for Catullus, okay, the fact is we can get back to what is pretty close to that perfect manuscript. Now, there's other things, and we're going to talk about those. Gary, we got one more. Da Vinci Code. You've been lecturing on this. This is coming out. It's like a tidal wave coming over us. Give me something about this that bothers you.
Dan Brown says that the deity of Christ, so many other things, were A, stolen from other ancient mystery religions, and B, Constantine becomes the anti-hero here, or the hero, depending on your view. But he invents everything. The comment in there by one of the professors that Jesus was a mortal man, nothing more, until Nicaea in 325. Nobody thought he was any more. We can't get any earlier than that. No more claims. The New Testament. Constantine chose the New Testament books. He shoved the ones that he wanted. He just wholesale. He burned the rest of them. More than 80 Gospels were told. Just some rather non-factual claims as opposed to that fact page right there at the beginning after the title page.
Yeah, because the truth is, the Gnostic texts that he's talking about, that he says has the real story, they got more of a divine Jesus than a human Jesus. And the New Testament actually has a human and divine all the way through all of the writers in the New Testament.
Yeah, and the Gnostic Gospels are not the friends of, he wants Jesus, he says Jesus is the first feminist. Well, you've got Thomas 1:14 that says Mary can become a man so that she can enter the kingdom. I mean, this isn't the friend of feminism.
Yeah. All right, we're going to continue this in our next program, and we're going to go back through these books again because we want to look at the death of Jesus Christ. Pilate is completely different in each one of these books and what he does. And we want to look at the resurrection. You've got lots to share with us, so please join us next week.